Chicago is reeling from a weekend marked by a rash of gun violence. At least 5 people were killed and as many as 39 others were wounded in shootings. The latest city crime statistics show murders are up 55% from last year. Shootings up 53%. Joining me now is Chicago native and Fox News political analyst Gianno Caldwell. Gianno, great to see you. Look, I live in New York City and the stats are alarming there as well. In November, 112.5% increase in shootings in this city. The common thread that I can see, Democrat mayors.
Yeah. You know, it's always a sad time when I'm joining you guys for segments like these because my family personally have been impacted by the violence, specifically in Chicago. A few years back, Memorial Day weekend, my younger brother was in the car with two of his friends when two men walked up and shot that car 25 times. He lived, thankfully, but his best friend died in his arms. And it's alarming what we've seen in the city of Chicago. You mentioned the statistics, and just to give raw numbers, almost 4,000 people shot in the city of Chicago since January. That's almost 1,500 more than what we saw last year. And what is the distinction between last year and this? We're in the midst of a pandemic where the city shut down, with the state partially shut down in areas. And what's more common than not is the elected officials within the city of Chicago and the state of Illinois have failed as citizens.
Gianno,
what can Americans do? Yes.
That is a sobering story, and I really am so sorry for your loss, and it really just shows us all that nobody is exempt from this. When crime is out of control, it could happen to any of us. So I am sorry for your loss. But I want to ask you this.
My brother lived, but his best friend
died.
My little brother.
Yeah,
my brother is still with us.
But I'm still wondering, you know, as we're looking at these cities, part of the problem has been police officers, and I always say, is defunding the police the answer? Or do you actually, and I know it sounds counterintuitive, you throw more money at the problem and you train them and you teach them and you make sure that they are out there fighting crime? Somebody's got to do it.
You know, I just had this conversation on my podcast Out Loud with Gianno Caldwell with Daniel Cameron, who's the Attorney General of Kentucky who oversaw the Breonna Taylor case on the defund the police issue. And the truth of the matter is, and I encourage people to subscribe and listen to that interview, which is out today. The truth of the matter is, individuals like AOC and other members of the squad in Congress who've been advocating for the defunding of our police, and we've seen this happen already in places like Los Angeles, New York, where you see the crime has skyrocketed. The blood of those individuals are on their hands. I may not agree with everything law enforcement does. I know that law enforcement needs reforming. I know that not every particular cop is a bad cop, as some people have tried to say, the folks of AOC. I've represented a police organization, a national police organization, and I know that there are a lot of good officers out there. So when you talk about this, I really believe that as legislators, they're doing more harm than good. Yes, reform the police, but certainly not defund the police. People in Chicago need the police, especially in these poverty-stricken areas where violence runs wild. That's why we have to have common sense when discussing these issues. And those that are elected in these particular positions, AOC and others, they're not implementing common sense. They're creating a dangerous narrative where people are dying.
Well, there's a quality of life problem, right, for citizens who live in a city like Chicago or in New York City. I've done extensive reporting here on how so many people have left because of the pandemic, but because of the violence and fearfulness, really, at this point. The city is losing revenue. It's going to be very difficult to regain that revenue and to attract people to come back. So not only are you creating an unsafe environment, but potentially long-term harming the longevity of your city.
Not only that, the trauma it caused. And I'm going to be honest, I grew up in those neighborhoods that were very, very dangerous, where people were shooting left and right. And when I was able to afford to be in a better environment, just going back to visit my family gave me trauma. I'm being very honest when I say it doesn't bring me any pride to say that, but certainly this is what a lot of folks within the city of Chicago are going through and what they've been going through on the southwest sides of Chicago and other parts of the city. That's why it's important for Chicagoans to take this moment and realize that you have to replace Lori Lightfoot, the mayor of Chicago, because she's not made it safe. She's not made it a destination city. She's made it a partially helped to create a hellhole environment for the people who live there. They can't afford to put their children's lives in danger by even sending them to school when the schools were open. So this is a dangerous issue which need to be solved. Leadership has to change, and that's the only way that I can see things becoming better.
Yeah, when people don't have quality of life, if they can afford it, they leave. That's what happens.
Absolutely.
Gianno, great to see you. Thanks. We'll talk to you
Thank you
soon.
for having me tonight.
57, 58, 59, 60. That's 4 minutes.
I could do 5.
Okay, sweetie, I really have to get ready for my meeting.
Switch to Progressive and you can save hundreds. You know, like the sign says.
The former independent senator from the beautiful state of Connecticut, of course, ran for vice president of the United States back in 2000. Senator, this back and forth on these races, and particularly the runoff battle going on in Georgia, if those polls stay where they are, and anything could and likely will change, and the Democrats pull both races out, that's a whole new ballgame, isn't it?
Neil, great to be with you as always. So it is a whole new ballgame. Matter of fact, a lot of the ballgame of the next 2 years is on the line in Georgia early in January in these runoffs, because obviously these two races will determine whether the Senate is Republican. So there's one house controlled by another party than the White House and the House, or whether the Democrats control the Senate, and they basically are in control of the whole of the federal government. That doesn't mean Joe Biden's going to get everything he wants, but it means it's going to be a lot easier. And I was surprised by the recent polling in Georgia that showed the two Democratic candidates ahead, because the history is, as Steve Harrigan said, that Republicans win special elections in Georgia. But I think two things are happening. One is the state is changing. Witness the fact that Joe Biden carried Georgia. And the second is, right, I think this is intuitive more than scientific. I think all the tumult around President Trump not acknowledging that he's lost his bid for re-election may not be helping those two Republican candidates for the Senate in Georgia. So I think Chuck Grassley, as always, gave pretty sound advice to President Trump about what he should do this weekend.
You know, the Wall Street Journal kind of echoed what you just said, Senator, this morning, saying Mr. Trump is already sounding like he wants to run again in 2024, and his stolen election claims sound like an opening bid for campaign donations. At least for now, he could say with justification that he helped the GOP gain seats in the House and avoid a rout in the Senate. But that narrative changes for the worse if the GOP loses in Georgia and Mr. Trump divided his own party to serve his own political interests. He needs a GOP Senate nearly as much as Mitch McConnell does. What do you think of that?
Well, I couldn't agree more with what the Journal says. The Republicans don't need me to give them advice. Certainly the president doesn't. But this is, and what's happening in Georgia, about Georgia. It's not about President Trump or the presidential election count. It's really about who's going to control the Senate, and that's pretty important to the country over the next 2 years. So it ain't over till it's over, but I think the Democrats have more of a chance to carry at least one and maybe both of these Senate seats than we would have guessed just a week or two ago.
Yeah, it's looking that way. But like you said, it's way too early to tell. But Senator, I don't know if you had a chance to catch Joe Biden's comments last night on CNN. But the whole issue of whether the president should concede, will concede, came up, and about the importance of the president being at Joe Biden's inauguration. While he seemed to dismiss it for himself personally, he thinks it's good for the country that he'd be there. I hope I got that right. I think that's the gist of it. What do you think of that? That no matter how President Trump feels, if it turns out that these legal options have all failed, he's still bitter, he's still angry, but he shouldn't be petty about it. He should show up for the inauguration of Joe Biden, if for nothing more to show the continuity of our system.
Yeah, I totally agree with what President-elect Biden had to say. Incidentally, I did see it last night. I do occasionally watch a cable news network other than Fox networks, but very rarely.
You are forgiven just this once, just this once.
Thank you. Very merciful. I thought Joe Biden was right. And honestly, we all know how disappointed, angry, convinced that President Trump is that he got cheated out of this victory. But the courts are not siding with that. That's the way we resolve conflicts here. It's going to be hard for him, but there's no question that for the country it would be better if he and his wife were at the inauguration of Joe Biden. They don't have to endorse him, but they're there really for America that he, I know, loves, that he, Donald Trump, loves. And he can go on to do whatever he wants to do after that. Now, look, if he doesn't come and his wife doesn't come, the inauguration will go forward. Joe Biden's going to be our next president. It really is time for President Trump to acknowledge that. If he's thinking about running in 2024, well, that's 4 years down the road, and he can begin to do that. But I think it's time to put the country first, as President Trump has said, and one big way to do that would be for him to attend the inauguration of his successor.
All right. We'll see what happens. We'll take an under and over on the odds of all of that happening. Senator, have a wonderful holiday. Be healthy, be well. Joe Lieberman, the former vice presidential candidate, of course, multi-term senator from the beautiful state of Connecticut.